Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. Russia launched a new barrage of missiles at Ukraine today as a delegation of African leaders arrived in Kiev to broker a peace deal between the two nations and ensure deliveries of food and fertilizer to their continent. Ukraine says it shot down a dozen missiles, but explosions were reported in Kiev during the peace mission. Russia continues to report it's thwarting Ukraine's counteroffensive and inflicting heavy losses of some 500 Ukrainian troops in the last 24 hours. In the Donetsk region, Ukraine says it's recaptured at least 7 villages. The delegation is set to travel to Russia later today. The visit also comes amidst recent claims from a U.S. ambassador arms from South Africa were being shipped to Russia. Federal officials say the Department of Energy is among a small number of agencies compromised in a Russian ransomware attack launched by a gang to extort money by hacking a file transfer program popular with corporations and governments. Officials say the attack was quickly caught. Known victims include Louisiana's Office of Motor Vehicles and Oregon's Department of Transportation. Protests in Greece for migrants' rights after a boat carrying hundreds of migrants capsized off the coast. At least 78 bodies were recovered, 104 people rescued, but survivors say hundreds more were on the boat. The International Organization for Migration, a UN agency, said the trawler may have carried as many as 750 passengers. Greece's Coast Guard is defending its actions of following the boat for some time before it capsized. Officials said repeated offers for assistance were rejected in radio communications, as well as calls made over a loudspeaker. 9 Egyptians were arrested for trafficking in that case. The U.S. Supreme Court Thursday preserved the system that gives preference to Native American families in foster care and adoption proceedings of Native children, rejecting a broad attack from some Republican-led states and white families who argued it's based on race and discriminates against them. The court left in place the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act, which was enacted to address concerns Native children were being separated from families and too frequently placed in non-Native homes. Edwin Vieira reports.
Tribal advocates applaud the ruling since it keeps children in their communities to maintain their culture. Writing for the majority, Justice Amy Coney Barrett said 2 centuries of precedent established congressional rights to legislate Native affairs, even family law matters. North Dakota State Representative Jamie Davis is glad to see the law remain intact.
It's just really great to see, something so positive come out of the Supreme Court regarding our Indian children. It's the Indian Child Welfare Act, but big underlying issue on this was our sovereignty as well.
I'm Edwin J. Vieira for Pacifica Network and Public News Service.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers reintroduced the American Dream and Promise Act, a measure that would let undocumented immigrants brought to the country as children to remain in the U.S. and eventually become citizens. They made the announcement on the 11th anniversary of the DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, that protects undocumented youth brought to the U.S. as children from deportation. Christopher Martinez reports.
Lawmakers are reintroducing a bill called the American Dream and Promise Act. It would allow dreamers to get lawful permanent residency and a path to citizenship. The bill would also apply to migrants in humanitarian programs called Temporary Protected Status and Deferred Enforced Departure. Nidia Velasquez is a Democrat from New York.
Don't you ever forget this. Immigrants make America, America.
She says for too long, too many people have been forced to live in limbo.
It is long past time we provide peace of mind to millions who are American in every way, but on paper, by providing a pathway to citizenship. That is exactly what the Dream and Promise Act will do.
Democrats were not the only lawmakers at the news conference. Congressmember Maria Salazar is a Republican from Florida. She's introduced a bill called the Dignity Act that includes the Dream and Promise Act.
If you don't have a criminal record and you've been here for years, then you've been contributing with the economy and you studied and you did not get in trouble and you're really part of the fabric of the United States, we love you, we welcome you, and we want you to stay.
I'm Christopher Martinez.
Food and Drug Administration scientific advisors say the next round of COVID vaccine in the U.S. should include protection against the newest variant only, much like the flu shots. The FDA will make the final decision. Vaccine makers said during the meeting they could have updated vaccines available within months depending on the strain. And Miami's Republican mayor, Francis Suarez, is the latest candidate to join a crowded field seeking the Republican 2024 presidential nomination. Suarez, who is Cuban American, is the first Hispanic candidate to enter the presidential race. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.